A very, very disappointing night for Man United. The two boys have decided to pile it on. Fortunately for me, Utsav isn't here today, so I'm not going to hear that much anti-United banter. But I think Apurva and Anitej can carry the slack for him. But very interesting episode we have today. Obviously, the two biggest games of the European calendar to discuss, one that's just happened and one that's about to happen. We also have a very interesting segment for you guys after the discussion of these two games, where we're going to talk a little bit about our three clubs and mention, just talk a little bit about what we think they can do over the summer, things that players that need to be signed, players that need to be let go of, just small, subtle changes that each club can make. And anyway, let's get straight into the good evening man himself. Anitej is excited that his former manager could pull one over United. We never beat him in the league when he was at Arsenal as well. But really interesting game. I actually managed to catch the whole game. Unfortunately for me, it was a very, very odd game in that Villarreal scored with their first shot on target, and what happened to be their only shot on target in the whole 120. United played a team that I think we were looking at to be like the starting 11, for pretty much the whole season, but injuries and stuff didn't allow that to happen in the way. But obviously, Maguire was missing. But still, I think United dominated for most patches of the game, created maybe not as many chances as their domination deserved, but there were still not too many points in the game where Villarreal were threatening. But I think it's been sort of the story of us in these big knockout and big finals where we've just not been able to put forward our best performance. And I think, a lot of fans online, again, yesterday, I'm one of those like AFTV fans who waits for United to do badly to go online and see people shit on Ole to maybe, sort of coincide with my opinions. But yesterday, I think a lot of people were quite disappointed with the substitutions. We made one substitution 115 minutes into the game, whereas, yeah, exactly. At that point, Villarreal had already made like 5, 6 subs, and so you could definitely see that once full-time whistle had blown, Villarreal were on the ascendancy, and the last 30 minutes were completely, dominated by them, and just a really interesting game. And I think, before I let you guys talk about your opinions on the game, I think the penalty shootout was definitely one of the most fascinating penalty shootouts I've ever seen. Like, I don't think De Gea came close to saving one of the 11. I think
David De
Rui
Gea hasn't saved a penalty since 2016. Just telling you.
From
and he's
36 penalties.
35 or 36 penalties in that time, which is just a ridiculous record. But more than that, it was also like Rui at least came close to saving two. It seemed like if United didn't miss, we'd still be there right now taking penalties. Like that's what I read a comment in the morning. Like De Gea just looked so ill-equipped. His confidence, his body language is just quite poor. And, we'll talk a little bit about that in the last segment, talking about what things that United need to do to improve. But what do you guys make of, and just a small thing, we spoke about this before we started today, but Emery, what an unbelievable achievement for Emery. I know this isn't the premier competition in the continent, but still to have such a consistent record over the as many years as he's had, just a real testament to what he's able to do, and like a real like evidence of how successful and how tactically astute he is in this. If you guys can just carry on and talk a little bit about the game and about Emery.
Yeah, I mean, about Emery, I really think he's changed his game around as well, like the way he's set up his team and everything. Because even when he played against Arsenal with two legs, what we were used to as Arsenal fans was just a table tennis match, pretty much, with the opposition team having so many shots on target and like Arsenal as well having a lot of shots. But with Villarreal this season, it seemed like he was a lot more pragmatic, which is not usually like him. Defensively, they've been really good. They grinded out a 0-0 at the Emirates, and that's what got them through. And then I thought even against United, I thought honestly like he would go gung ho as well, but it didn't seem like that. He like was playing very defensive. They were pretty deep as well. Um, I guess that worked because United is like I think unbelievable on the counter, and when you like let them come onto you, they're not as effective. So that's definitely something he thought of, I think. But yeah, I mean, it was just interesting to see how he didn't quite like go gung ho and go for it. Like even when he played against Klopp's Liverpool when he was at Sevilla, I thought they were a lot more like attacking than this Villarreal team. One thing that I wanted to talk about was if this entire uh, sort of narrative around Ole not winning a trophy put more pressure on United. And I feel like there was a lot of conversations going on. Like Bruno came out and said, like, this is an opportunity to win. And I feel like a couple of other players like spoke about that as well. And I just feel like usually a team that's already qualified for Champions League wouldn't have that much to play for. Like we saw against, a couple of years ago when Chelsea played Arsenal, it was like the pressure was on Arsenal to deliver. And I thought that same thing would happen with Villarreal, but for some reason it seemed like because of all this talk that was going around, like, Ole not winning anything for United. He's been to like 5 semi-finals, including this, like Europa League. He's been to 5 semi-finals and not won anything. He went past the semi-final once, which was this occasion, and he's like it ended in defeat again. So I don't know if that played an effect. You talked about Maguire not being there as well. I'm sure that like affected like the starting 11 and the play as well. But yeah, it's just something that I thought of, and I just felt like yeah,
So
they didn't really need to talk about all that. Yeah.
I think like because my Twitter is obviously dominated by the Liverpool fans, um, like one of the biggest things that came out was that since Maguire's been injured, they've not kept a clean sheet in like whatever the last 5-6 games he's not played. So they were just pointing out like how one centre back can affect so many things, and like
Imagine
imagine
losing
losing
four.
three. Oh yeah. And also I think like confidence by very great pundits like Paul Scholes, saying that
That
you're
was
playing
just ridiculous.
Villarreal here, you're playing a team that finished 7th in La Liga, like United should win this with their eyes closed and all. I don't know those comments, especially from a legend like Scholes, how that would have affected the team, and what the mentality would be going in. I don't know, but like it seems such a dumb thing to say right before a game where they're like, oh, it's such a poor team, and Madrid and Barca have been poor on top of that, and they still finish out of the Champions League spots. But other than that, I think like Emery got his tactics incredibly correct, or whatever you can say, because what Anitej said that if United are allowed to play counter-attacking football, like they will win. They will win. So to get that one goal in the start and be able to sit back was, I'm sure, like how it would have been an ideal situation, what they would have planned in their heads. And when I was seeing the game, it was such like Emery, like they were saying he's playing like blanket football or blanket defending, where
They kept
they,
saying that.
yeah, it's like the ball is there in the box. There's like 7 players just going on them. So United has no space. Pogba and Bruno didn't have any like chances to make that thing happen or whatever. So it's like it was incredibly well designed tactical football from Emery to play the way he played against United. And like obviously props to him, like 5 finals in the last 8 years, 4 Europa League trophies, like it's incredible. If someone did that with even the FA Cup, I would say it's amazing. Like although we think that Europa sucks, but it's still a significant trophy, and recently like all the
There's
big
clearly
clubs
an
have been playing it.
And I think Kapur, like you said, 5 out of 8, and those 3 years were actually, I think 1 year Arsenal didn't qualify, and 2 years were at PSG when he was in the Champions League. So he's literally almost won the trophy every single time he's been in it, which is just like Anitej said, even that Arsenal team possibly had no right to be so far in that tournament, and he really, really did a great job of getting them there. And I think that's another thing. And I think that's something that I wanted to talk to you guys more about. And this was again, like, this was something I mentioned recently about what both of you were talking about, but it's that tactical naivety, right? That whole idea of like there were so many United fans for the first time yesterday where they were complimenting Mourinho, where they're like that final where we beat Ajax was with a weaker team, and the Ajax team was a much stronger team, and still he was able to like tactically sort of set up the game for that one particular game. But coming back to the point that you both were making, were about how Ole wasn't hired to take this team back to the Champions League, and not to take them back into the Champions League, but not to win these trophies, not to win the Premier League. It was sort of to cleanse the damage that Mourinho had done. It was sort of like a rehab, like a detox sort of process. But now that the fact that we've given him 2.5 years, to like actually try to make an impact, do you guys feel like the club is progressing, or what do you guys like from outside perspective after just this one result? Do you think it's something that should be like considered like a failure on his
So
part, or is it something that just happens and it should be something to look at the second place as opposed to
I think the
just
tactical
chasing?
the tactical immaturity shows in Ole. the whole thing of not making a sub till the 100th minute, especially when you've had such a season, like, where games have come every 2 days and like not even three. So it's like fresher players obviously, like, you know, will have an impact, and you will be able to attack better, defend better, or whatnot. The argument there is that, United's bench wasn't great. Like, the first two players that you can bring on is Mata and Telles, where you might not trust them as much, but still, like, they're fresh legs. But other than that, I think, like, I'm surprised by the way Ole has done. Like, second position this year has been, I think he's done remarkably well to achieve that. And he's been surprising because, like, they've played well, they've gone unbeaten away this season, which is, I think, a very good achievement. So I think they are progressing, but I don't know if he'll be the one to guide them to win those cup competitions. He could definitely maybe, you know, go for a title competing season. I'm not saying win the title, but he could challenge, be in a title race. But in cup competitions, you need that tactical edge over the other managers. And I don't think he still has that, or he showcased that.
Yeah, I completely agree with Apur regarding the doing well in the league and maybe not so in the cup competitions. But I mean, as an Arsenal fan, I would do anything to have the stability that he's brought to United right now in terms of two top four finishes. Before that, you guys were in turmoil and there was so much pain and hurt in United fans, and I really can't understand how they can like take that for granted, so quickly. The fact that he's getting you guys into like top four finishes like consistently now. And maybe after a couple of years or a year also, like after that, maybe you guys can think of like upgrading the coach to like actually winning cups. And I feel like he will challenge for the league as well. So, I mean, in my opinion, I feel like it's a little premature to like talk about Ole leaving or like wanting him out just because he lost a Europa League final, which was pretty much meaningless because he already guaranteed you Champions League. Um, and I wanted to ask you this. I mean, do you think this is important because do you think that since he's been here, it's been like a good rebuild in terms of the squad? Because I feel like that would be important in the sense that if he can at least rebuild the squad like to a good extent, then getting another experienced coach in who has like a proper CV would help. But if in the meantime he can't even do that, then that'll be a problem that you guys will face again in the future, even if you get another coach.
I think we've seen this pattern at United before, where the first couple of windows, the board just seems to sort of cave in and give the manager what he wants. With Mourinho, with Pogba and Ibra, he got his first few signings, and then after that, he wasn't able to get it. And so far, it seems like Ole, maybe last summer was a poor summer, but after that, he sort of helped improve the team a little bit. It is, even though that this year he didn't get the players he wanted, and I think I think that's a really good point that like how Arsenal fans took Wenger for granted. Like if we take this guy for granted, like it's not, because at least my opinion has drastically changed because of the improvement to the individual players. Like Shaw is definitely going to possibly start for England in the Euros, and nobody would have said that a year ago. Like literally, he was a joke of a player. So those type of things, like I completely agree with you in that squad rebuilding, that he has done that so far. But I also agree with you in that he needs to continue doing that. Like that should be his focus, as opposed to, I agree, like the Europa League was a meaningless game, but trophies just bring a sort of mood and a sort of, like the ability to celebrate with your family, celebrate with the club staff, celebrate with the training staff.
Winning
all
is
of that.
winning, man. Like
Exactly.
I would win
so all of
anything.
that. Because if you could see how distraught Bruno was in tears almost, after the game, like, and a guy like that, like to keep him, right? Because I was also talking about the impact Ole's had. Think about where we would have been last year without Bruno. Like we were 6th or 7th or 5th, I think, before he joined. We went undefeated till the end of the season almost to get that on the last day to get Champions League. So it's not like it's been comfortable, right? Like this year was obviously a really comfortable season compared to last, but I think definitely in that sense that he's got the attitude back. And I think that's a really good point to make, is that there was so much like hopelessness and despair around the club before he came in. And he's definitely put us in the right direction, and all credit to him. But I think, moving forward, and this will lead really into a great discussion that we're going to have, is like that's what Lampard did for Chelsea, right? Like he got them in a good position, got the players he wanted in, and then you sort of bring in like this genius, and look at where they've sort of reached as a result of it, right?
Exactly.
So I think that is like a really good example. And obviously Chelsea are such a poor example of how to treat managers. And like United, Arsenal, Liverpool will never treat managers like that. Like however despairing our situation gets as clubs, you want like just we don't have that revolving door in our clubs. So there's always going to be a little bit more faith and therefore a little bit more sort of lease for failure. But I think it'll be really interesting, and we can definitely come back to this and talk about the improvements of the squad when we come back to our last segment. But I think that's a great segue for us to talk about talking about tactics. I don't think there's going to be a more tactical
Champions League
battle
final.
than the Champions League final. Like when you look at like one team is going to come out and they've had these tactics driven into them for the past like 5 years, where they know exactly what they all have to do, where they all have to stand, and the other team is literally going to be there to try to stop City. Just in case anyone was questioning what that team was. So the second team, Chelsea, is literally going to be there to try to stop City from playing their stuff. And it's going to be I think it's going to be a cracking game, considering the fact that both these teams have played each other. And an amazing thing actually is City have played Chelsea now, obviously twice in the league and once in the FA Cup. All three times, Pep has not played his best 11. Like if you look, especially in the league and the cup, he played literally his second string 11. And this is something that Greg Popovich would do in the NBA, where he would never play his best players against the teams that he would thought would come in the finals, so that he always had like an element of surprise sort of. I don't know if Pep obviously expected Chelsea to go so far, but even then, it's going to be
Yeah,
a
I was going to
really
say that's amazing foresight to have, bro.
yeah, I was just gonna. I doubt it. I was just trying to give Pep a little more credit than he deserves, maybe. But it's gonna be fascinating to watch, especially. And I think this last game of the season, a lot of punters had the entire second 11 playing, but the fact that he played everybody against Everton and literally ruined Everton's season as a result of it. But I think the team is firing on all cylinders, and it's going to be a really interesting thing. Chelsea had a pathetic last day. What's worse than relying on Spurs to do you a favor is the fact that they actually did it. Like imagine like the whole.
Seriously, man.
So it's a really, really contrasting form, both of them coming into the game. Obviously, Chelsea had the disappointing FA Cup final. What do you guys expect to see? Personally, I don't see any other result than like a 3-1 or a 4-1 City. But unless, of course, the first goal is a Chelsea goal, and immediately there's like a lot of, like City then will go into a little bit of a shell maybe. But what do you guys make of the game? And really big game,
No,
like
it's literally
that it's two Premier League games.
Bala made fun of it like literally last week about if Chelsea score first, he'll just shut shop, And
Mhm.
like you said, the first goal is going to be so important because if Chelsea do that, I think it's going to be difficult for City with they're pretty much going to line up with a false nine, I'm sure. I don't think Aguero is going to start the last game for City. But yeah, the first goal I think is going to be important. But I mean, given Chelsea's form coming into this, they seem a little shaky. They lost to Arsenal, then Villa as well. Who did they play in between? I forgot, but
They played
yeah,
they played Leicester and they beat them.
oh right, yeah,
So
yeah.
I think
But
so for me.
yeah.
Sorry, continue.
No. I just feel like it's gonna be, yeah, the form isn't great, and like City coming into this and this time they're gonna play their strongest 11. So I mean, I think City's gonna get this.
I think City like definitely has the edge, but I think I'm giving Chelsea much more credit than you guys are, because I feel like Pep's team doesn't struggle, but they don't have a good time against a three back, and especially with like a person like Reece James at right back, where he can easily fill in, and the way he plays, he's so big, he's so fast, and he can definitely come back and make that like a back four, and Chilwell can work however he wants to. So I think that's going to be a big factor, and I think the way Kante has been playing, he could definitely like stop De Bruyne from doing what he does, and he could definitely help out with that whole false nine situation. And I think it'll depend a lot on how good a game Kante has in that final, and especially with this whole
Yeah,
hamstring situation and everything. Like
he's
hopefully,
been a
he
big
can,
miss.
yeah, he can play that 90 minutes and like play well. But again, like coming back to City, I feel like he's going to start like no Aguero, no Jesus, probably like Foden, Mahrez, and De Bruyne up top, and that's just like they will just pass their way into the goal. If like
No, but see, that's where I mean, I was talking to Ishane about this, but that's where I think like Chelsea could do well because this Chelsea team is such a Bundesliga team, right? They have like the star German coach, and I feel like there's so much like a Bundesliga team, whereas Pep City is like the Tiki Taka La Liga team, and I feel like Bundesliga teams are super effective against teams like that. Like we saw, like a few. I think it was Guardiola's Barcelona when they played Bayern. They got thumped like 7-1 or something.
No. That was Guardiola's Bayern who beat the Barca.
No, Barca beat
What?
Bayern when Guardiola was manager because that was like the three, right? He tried to man mark Messi, Suarez, Neymar, and he got
Yeah.
destroyed.
No, Bayern beat Barca when Guardiola was there. Right?
No.
I don't think Guardiola
The
lost
only season
except the Chelsea game.
yeah, was Chelsea when Ramirez and Torres scored.
Yeah, that was the only time Guardiola lost in the Champions League.
Otherwise, he won the rest, like the three
Okay.
remaining, whatever.
Never mind, then scrap that.
Yeah.
But I still do think that these
No, but
Bundesliga
what you're
teams
saying makes
would be
sense in that, like, it's like Chelsea's team is far more physical, but like the figure, Rishabh, the big Chelsea fan, is always like just maligning the Chelsea players' attitude. He's like, these guys have failed 4 managers in a row now. Like they've just constantly let down, and that mentality thing is definitely a thing that I agree. Like this Villa game, there was no excuse for Chelsea to play and lose that game the way they did. Villa had absolutely nothing to play for. Grealish is like hardly playing well. In fact, it was Bertrand Traore, the legend, who basically cut Chelsea to shreds, got the goal and the penalty. But really, really interesting, considering I think, in fact, like James is also playing that right centre back position, which is even more interesting. And he's playing Azpilicueta in that right wing back position. So he's basically playing 5 defenders, which is like super defensive, and Kante and Jorginho in that mix, but the thing is, I really wondered, you guys, like, what do you think is a front three though? Is it gonna be Werner's gonna start for sure?
Werner and Mount,
for sure.
Yeah,
it's gonna
the
be between
third one is
Ziyech,
just
Pulisic,
like,
Havertz.
Who would you start?
Pulisic has to start though. I would start.
I would personally start Pulisic, but I don't know. Like Ziyech just seemed completely out of his place.
I would start
Havertz might not be
up top
fit
and
also,
like
that's the
Mount
problem.
and Werner, behind, because Werner's pace where like Havertz just comes in and Werner makes those runs. But I don't know, Pulisic is like, for those 20 minutes, he's like untouchable. But other than that, I don't know. Like, I've not seen him play enough, so I don't want to comment. But like, I don't know. Whatever little I've seen, I would prefer Havertz in that system, just because they rely on goals only on that front three, like to do everything.
Exactly. All goals and assists pretty much come from just the front three's activity. So it's going to be a really fascinating like game. So if you guys had to make a score prediction though, like what direction would you go? So I already said I think it's going to be 3-1 City. I think City
Chelsea do struggle to score, right? And City's defense is also pretty unreal right now. So 2-0 City.
I think it'll be a 1-1 draw, and then a winner in extra time, not going to penalties.
Foden with the clutchasso moments. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a really, really, and the post-match and the pre-match press conferences are going to be as a big event, Like, do you think Pep is going to shed some more tears? Okay, wait, real question. Pep's crying was more impressive or Modi? Which was the better?
Anita asked me this, this question, and like it took me a while to actually come up with an answer.
Who wore the tears better? But yeah, I mean, anyway, Porto is in for the big game, and I think Chelsea definitely City. Coming back to Anitesh's point about pressure for Chelsea, it's sort of like a free hit because nobody expected them to be here at this point in the season.
Yeah, the pressure's on City for sure.
It's still that
and they got top 4 as well.
And I just fucking hope that Pep overthinks it and starts like Cancelo as left wing instead of Foden or something. That would
I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't start Cancelo.
I don't think he will start. I think it'll be Zinchenko and Walker.
Exactly.
Just for the Walker space, yeah.
And Zinchenko has really come into his own defensively over the last couple of months, So it's going to be a fascinating game. But I think that, we can we'll obviously have a post-match to discuss about the events, and we'll have Mr. Tuchel hater Utsav hopefully with us back then. But we also have this interesting segment, and this was something that I thought of yesterday, considering it was the end of United season, and there's obviously Euros to come, and we have a lot to look forward to, considering the season has been a little bit of an odd one. But so how we've sort of formatted it is, we look at our respective squads and look at who we can get rid of to sort of help fund who we can get as a necessity signing, and I think as a luxury signing. And I think I'll go first. And I think when you look at United squad right now, if we were to get rid of someone in order to like sort of recuperate a decent amount of funding and make use of his value as high as it is, and this is actually this could be a whole topic, a whole episode on its own. But Pogba's future is really up in the air. He's sort of come back into the squad. If you looked at yesterday at the break between extra time and full time, he was the guy speaking, and he's definitely been given more of a leadership role under Ole since in the last like year or so, last couple of years rather. So it's going to be really interesting to see. But I think in terms of like the current situation with COVID and how the Glazers are not going to be keen to spend too much money, I wouldn't be too disappointed to see him leave, considering we do have players. He's been playing in that front four, and that front four is maybe somewhere where we can sign players who are more appropriate for that position, as opposed to just like jigsaw puzzling him in there. So that's going to be for me, the guy who might be on the fringes of the squad. And actually, Tellez also. I wouldn't mind if we sell Tellez. I think he's quite useless, but. Moving and another so the necessity signing for United, I think, and this is obviously a continuation of last year's saga. I think Sancho coming in, just giving the team a little bit of width. We play two strikers as a left wing and a right winger. So it's going to be like really, really essential for us to sort of get that extra player in that position who can actually change the dynamic of the way we play. So I think that's a incredibly
Wait.
necessary
So
sign.
would Sancho go on the right or the left?
Definitely on the right, I think, because is more appropriate for the left than Greenwood is for the right, right? Greenwood is
But here I was reading about Sancho. So apparently he played for Dortmund on the right. He started quite a few games on the right, and he wasn't scoring at all. Like he had managed to get like a few assists, but his XG was so less compared to his XG when they switched him back to the left. So that's why I was like wondering. He like apparently started thriving. Like he scored, he assisted. His XG and his XA like increased drastically once he switched to the left from the right wing.
that's
Which is why I
actually
wanted to like.
because I guess that also adds like some flexibility, his ability. Because honestly, on the attacking midfield right position, he's got 13 appearances, 6 goals, and 5 assists. So maybe this was like last season or something, because in the left he's got 6 starts and 3 goals and 4 assists. So I guess he has a greater output on the left, but he's still
Yeah.
producing a lot on the right. But he's going to be interesting, and I think more than like he's obviously killing it on the field, but the profile of like a young English signing, 21-year-old, like a signing that could ideally walk into like a Barcelona or a Real Madrid even. I think that's the type of profile of signing we need. Not Barca, but anyway. But
So
here's the
wait.
last one.
Okay, yeah, go on.
I was just gonna finish with the dream signing I think would be Declan Rice. Like the way I don't know if we can afford him. I don't know if we can, but having a player like that in the midfield who can really drive the team forward and at the same time provide that defensive stabilities, I don't think that's like a priority considering all the other holes we need to fill in the squad. But I definitely would love to see that guy. I just don't want him to go to Chelsea. I think Chelsea have enough of a squad right now. So I would love to see him. I wouldn't even care if he didn't come to United. I wouldn't even mind going to Arsenal or Tottenham or something. But just don't want to see him go to Chelsea.
So
But yeah.
Gary Neville had like a thing, where ask Gary on Twitter or whatever. So someone asked him like, where can United finish next season with the right signings, and what would the right signings be? So he claims if y'all get Varane, Kane, and Sancho, y'all win the title next season. What are your thoughts on that? Yes or no?
I think those three and Messi, we can win the title for sure. Like,
I think Varane, Kane, Sancho. I think that.
yeah, honestly, if provided that none of those guys get injured or anything, like especially Kane, if he can sort of give you a whole
He still
season, I
scores
think
25 goals with getting 2 months injury.
yeah,
Dude.
that is true. But I don't know. Like, I just don't see Kane happening right now. Like the more time that Kane has, whatever, since he said that he's going to leave, it seems like just City, like it seems so obvious that he's going to City right now,
Would you take
which could
Ronaldo?
honestly, I would, oh yeah, of
Bro.
course. I think what type of question is that?
No, this guy's a Ronaldo hater, dude. So
Yeah,
I
this
mean,
guy
not
would
when
say
he
no. I don't want
plays for
Ronaldo.
United, dude. Like when he plays for United, I'm a Ronaldo fan, bro. I just don't like this Madrid and Juventus and all those guys. I'm not a fan, but
Okay, bro.
when
Enough
he
of United talk, bro. Let's move on to
so
some
let's
better
move
clubs
on
like.
to Arsenal. Where do you?
So I
You
will
said you wanted
actually
some
made a
time
list
for
of
this
players.
as well, but
You think Do you think there are Arsenal fans like watching? Like there are Arsenal fans nowadays?
I have no idea actually. But who cares? I mean, like, so basically, I think, like, considering that we didn't get like we don't have any European competition or anything, we can like we can chuck so many players out. And I was thinking about it. Even if we sell them for an average of like 8 million, we can get about like 100 if we sell like 12 of them. And I'm sure we can, like, there's Willian, Nketiah, Lacazette, Bellerin, Cedric, Maitland-Niles, Holding, Guendouzi, Torreira, Kolasinac, Mavropanos. These guys has been them for
So
like,
you'll get like 20 million cumulative for these players.
Let's do 15, another 10 million.
unless you have like Michael Edwards where he can sell like Divock Origi for 100
yeah,
million.
some Rian Brewster for some 25 million. What nonsense. But yeah, I mean, I feel like 8 million on average for these guys is a realistic target. And apparently, Kroenke also wants to invest this time because there's pressure from like outside people, Daniel Ek, who wants to buy the club. So I feel like they might actually invest this time. And I think Arteta's like honestly such a good like talker or whatever, and I think he's like charmed them as well into believing that he's the right guy for this project. So I actually do believe they'll invest for once. And
But don't you think they have
as a
sorry to cut you off, but don't you think they've already invested not quite a bit, but a good amount in the last 2-3 signings? Like they've got a 80
I
million
mean,
Pepe, they've got a 60 million Partey, like
I
they've got
agree, but
Willian,
so
Aubameyang,
what
Lacazette.
What Arsenal fans really gripe at is the fact that they haven't put in their own money into it. Every other owner has, but they haven't. This is all like sort of like sponsorship money and like money that Arsenal's come up with basically. So I mean, they've made a sort of commitment that they would like take Arsenal back to where it belongs and like invest and blah blah blah. They've said all the right things, but I actually think that, like I said, Arteta sort of like got them on side and made them believe in him as well. So if all these players do leave and they actually do invest, the dream signing for me would be Grealish because I mean just the fact that we missed the number 10 solely in the first few months. I sent you that stat as well on Instagram where like since Emil Smith Rowe got introduced into the squad and he's still such a youngster
Right.
who's not even like he's injury prone still, and you can't give him too many minutes. But since he's come in, since we've got a number 10, got a proper structure, us is like the second best in terms of like form, like some 23, 24 games played or something. So yeah, getting Grealish in would be like the dream signing. But if we don't, I think even getting Odegaard back on loan or like trying to get him um, on a permanent transfer would be such a good piece of business because Arsenal lately haven't been good in the transfer window. And the fact that we've got this trial period and tried him out and seen that he can actually influence our game in a positive way, I feel like and he's so young as well. So it'll be like a sort of risk averse piece of business. So, I mean, I would get him. And one centre back that I mean, since David Luiz is leaving for sure, one centre back that I would get would be Boateng. He's free as well. So in that sense, I feel like it's realistic as well. So yeah, Boateng would be my realistic signing. And I guess a luxury would be, I mean, if you're selling Bellerin and Maitland-Niles and all these other dumbasses, then I think either going for Lamptey or Max Aarons would be a good piece of business. So I think these.
So do you think with these signings that you will have a realistic shot for top 4? If like even 70% of this happens.
Yeah, tell us what signings you have to make. Like you have 3 signings to make, and I'm more curious about the positions. Like what positions? Definitely a center. I mean, who's this Emil Smith Rowe? Is he the Croydon of the De Bruyne from Croydon?
Croydon De Bruyne? Yeah. I feel, dude. So this season we've relied on youngsters a lot more, and I think they can only get better from this point. Can't hear you, Ashwin. But yeah, I think they can only get better from this point on. So definitely like try and build it on them.
But like, what's the deal with Aubameyang? You think like he plays, doesn't play, gets picked in the team, not. Is it because of his personal stuff and he'll be back next season or like what?
I mean, so if you look at across like past 6-7 years across different clubs, this has been his worst performing season. But like he performs season in season out. So I feel like this has just been a one-off. considering he's been carrying us for so long, and this is a COVID-struck season where like it's been pretty much like two years in a row we've been playing, and what he did at the back end of the previous season. I mean, I'm hoping he would come back, but there's no guarantee as such. But I mean, even without him, I think like even when he missed a couple of games, like the previous season, Martinelli stepped in and did well. So I think if the worst case scenario, hopefully he like.
So top 4 or no next season?
Since we don't have Champions League or Europa League, I think because we can concentrate only on that one fixture per week, and I think
And
that'll
FA
be
Cup.
like very crucial.
FA Cup is
No, but I
the
think honestly, like considering, like when you just if you were like, oh, if you're like a meme football fan and you looked at Arsenal and their position on the table, like it's quite despicable. But honestly, like the youngsters, I think the real like the Martinellis, the Sakas, the Smith Rowes, the Tierneys, there's still like a decent number of young players there who can
Yeah.
definitely improve and take the squad to another level. And I honestly thought Guendouzi was one of them, but Guendouzi is seemingly like gone. So
He's a crackpot, man. But I mean, okay, one more thing would be I would get any left back for free or like whatever on loan. Just get a left back in because Tierney, I mean, he's injury prone, but he's so important, man. But like when he's not there, we're playing Xhaka and like, Saka as left back and stuff, and that just doesn't help. And that's
it
I honestly
completely
think that
unbalances the rest of your squad as well.
exactly. I mean, Bertrand's available for a fee. I would take that guy also if he had to.
But with
But
Arsenal,
yeah,
the
that's
youngsters, like you never get that feeling where how, at least I don't, maybe because I don't watch too many games, but like there's no Foden or like Mason Greenwood or like Trent Alexander, and like Saka comes close, but just because he's been played in 500 different positions, you never get that consistent output
I
from
mean,
him
I
in a
think
particular fashion or whatever.
But the talent
I
is
think
there.
Martinelli and Saka.
He's played like 5 games, like you never get to see it.
He was injured this season.
Exactly.
But
Like
his breakthrough season, like even Klopp was so impressed with him. He was just like, this guy's like, oh.
I'm not saying like there's no talent or there's no, but like it's not come out yet. Like these guys, like they need to come out and make that position their own. Like one of these youngsters to actually make a difference. Like Greenwood, I think is like Greenwood in this last year has just thrown Martial out. Like if Martial goes, I don't think any United fan will even like blink because Greenwood is.
But how are you saying this? Because like considering like I said, like since Emile Smith Rowe came in, he's just been like a catalyst of change for Arsenal this season.
Right.
So,
I hope he gets like a full season. Like one of these players get the full season in that one desired position, and they actually come through.
I think because of fan tracks, I've definitely watched more Arsenal than anybody needs to watch. But I think what Abdul's saying and what I understand his point is that like how Trent, there's no question who the right back of Liverpool is. Whereas in Arsenal, still like you don't know Pepe is going to start right wing or Saka. Tierney is going to start left back or Saka. Left mid, is it going to be Oba, Martinelli? I think that's more of an Arteta thing. But
yeah. So that's I mean, I didn't explain it properly, but that's also why I think not having Champions League or a midweek fixture helps because I feel like he can have a solid, like a normal starting 11 that
and he can do a no press training and all, like no cameras allowed. Again, do it behind the doors. Like he has some crazy tactics. Fucking just copying Pep.
So anyway, since we have the orange cap, we'll finish off with KL Rahul. Oh, he changed it up with the red cap. So he's a Kerala Blasters guy. So we have Apur finishing us up with like his sort of take on Liverpool. Obviously, they're getting back their luxury dream, everything, signing Van Dijk. So, and then they're also getting Konate. But yeah, Apur, if you can talk about who you want to get.
Third choice. Van Dijk is our third choice. See, Nat Phillips and Reece Williams are like starting next season. Then Konate comes in as like a replacement, and then if he gets injured, then Van Dijk can like come in.
You watch this, Konate is gonna become Keita Part 2.
I hope. Red Bull knows how to sell players.
Bro, imagine working if we can get Haaland, bro. Like I'm saying, from Red Bull we should have got him, not this dumb Keita Pita and all. Fucking worst. But I mean, Liverpool, I think like Wijnaldum is going to be a huge miss because he was the only consistent midfielder throughout the last 4 seasons. Like no one has been that, consistent and that good. And
Sorry to cut you off. Just nobody appreciates Wijnaldum except like fans of the club. Like what a servant he's been for this club, dude. Like exceptional. Anyway, continue. I just was
No,
thinking about him.
yeah, like how you said, like I was so good on Klopp, to point it out that he's leaving as a Liverpool legend. He's won
He's a
the league,
legend,
he's
dude.
won the Champions League, and he's been
Those
a
two
part of
headers.
this. Yeah, he's not come on or something like in the finals. He started. He's been a part of the run. He's played like 35, 36 games, like. And I think that's going to be a big miss, especially with people like Henderson, Keita, Thiago. None of them can play a 38 game season. And so I think that we definitely need a midfielder. And I don't care who will be. I like just trust Klopp, and I don't even know that much, like, who he'll get. But like that, I think that should be a no-brainer, and I really hope it's not like a creative guy or like a Keita or a Thiago, because we need like a person who can replace Henderson, where he just work hard and you can deliver those performances like that 7 out of 10
Bissouma.
every day. I don't even know who that guy is. That guy's going to Arsenal. That's all I know. Like they're targeting him.
And he's been, yeah.
But
Honestly, I think
and
Liverpool also use him. Yeah.
And like for centre back, I think that Konate is good business. I don't know how good he plays or whatever it is. All I know is like, from the Liverpool fan accounts that he's good. But like when we signed like Divock Origi, Liverpool fan made him sound like he's the next Thierry Henry. So I don't know. But like I'm happy with that. But the luxury signing is definitely going to be someone who can, keep Mane, Firmino, Salah on their toes. Like, like Mane having this season is not okay. Like him, even though like he scored whatever 10 12 goals, he still needs to perform, because the sometimes goals and assists are just not enough. Like, like with Firmino, I always say the opposite, where like goals is not everything, but with when you already have that one player who's like orchestrating everything, who's making those runs, who's giving Salah and Mane to like, give that opportunity to score goals. Like Mane cannot not finish. Like he gets into those right positions, but like that guy, like he went to a doctor and he asked, is there something wrong with my body? Why am I not playing well? Like he was that confident, like,
Mm.
I'm doing everything right, like something's wrong with something else. So he's like, yeah, so I don't know. So definitely, again, if you ask me who, I'm going to say like Mbappe or Haaland, but those are absolutely unrealistic.
I
It's
mean,
not going to
that's what we're
happen.
looking for, actually. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
but like you're saying, so how I would describe what Liverpool need is, and he hasn't been given this since Alisson, I guess, but he needs a marquee signing. Like
Right.
Thiago, I guess he was a marquee signing, but was he really? Thiago kind of was like just available, and he wanted to go to Liverpool, so Liverpool couldn't say no type. But I think to like definitely, like you said, honestly, what I was thinking of was I knew that Salah had the assist, but I didn't see the assist, and the way that second goal was such beautiful play. And last year's Mane comes on to that, smashes it in the top right.
Top corner,
But
right?
here he takes a touch. He's like trying to do some crap. He takes like a deflected effort that just squeezes into the goal. Like that was exactly the difference, right? Like of what he would have stepped in and just curled it into the far corner last year. Whereas this year he's like a little bit double thinking himself. But I definitely think I agree with you in that you can't have two Firminos in your front three, right? You need another guy who can score goals and assist. And I think Jota has come and put that pressure on Firmino, and we can see the effect it's had on Firmino's game,
And
especially
I
in the
would
last
still say we need one more player. Like, if let's say every person in the world was available except like, the Messi, De Bruyne, Ronaldo, like those like whatever. Like I would
Wouldn't
definitely, the most ideal player for me would be Karim Benzema. Even if he gives me 2 seasons of what he had this last
I
season,
think
he would be unbelievable for Liverpool. He'll be a
honestly he'd be like a
Firmino with
better
20
Firmino.
goals. Yeah, he'll be a
Exactly.
Firmino with 20
Yeah.
goals.
What
I
a
mean,
player.
I mean, he's great and all, but he's 33, so I don't think
Exactly,
Liverpool's
I
going
would
to
say
be
even like
investing
2
in him.
years, where he
But
just propels us to the league, Champions League or whatever.
yeah, but I honestly, the player that I thought would be perfect for Liverpool would be Griezmann, and I don't think he's even in favor at Barcelona right now. Considering, I mean, he's similar to like Firmino in the sense that he's like hardworking, he's creative, he can score goals as well.
For some
He
reason,
can play
like
that false nine sort of thing.
personally, I don't rate Griezmann high at
Griezmann.
all, because even at Atletico, he wasn't given that choice where he could play attacking
Mm,
football or whatever. Even though like when I watched him for France, he was unbelievable. Like he
exactly. Yeah,
was
that's what.
incredible. So like
Yeah.
I definitely say he has potential, but like I wouldn't want him in the Liverpool. Like even Sancho, like I don't like him because the 2-3 games I've seen him play for Dortmund, the work ethic is like Neymar. Like I know Neymar is probably the best player in the world. Like he's probably better than Ronaldo and Messi. If like it's just
Talent.
the ability with the ball, but like that work ethic. Like for me personally, I want that to be there. And Sancho just
But
like
Grizzly has that though.
Griezmann does. Griezmann does. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that. I'm talking about Sancho there, and like Griezmann is just. I don't know. Maybe it's like a personal bias. Like I've not seen him do well at
Don't like his
Atletico
face.
or.
No,
His
but you have to ask
celebrations is
Chaitanya.
what ticks me off.
Chaitanya said Greece Daddy is the main. Chaitanya's favorite and most excited that he gets about is obviously Messi, but second is Griezmann. So at least we
And
have.
Dembele
We can't,
for
we
some
can't
reason.
take away. But Aguero going to Barca is going to be so interesting. Do you guys think Messi will stay now because of that, though?
I don't know. I like deep down I want him to leave to a better club just to see him play
Yeah.
better
Oh,
football,
nice. Well,
Stop fucking
absolutely.
carrying Barcelona like for the
Yeah,
last
for like
4 years,
20
waste your
years
own
and now.
time. So I
Yeah,
mean I honestly
exactly.
wish he went to something like fucking I don't know, like just fucking go to Inter or like Juventus, even like Bayern, dude. Like Lewandowski will score 100 goals if Messi goes there.
Conti is left, so that actually like there's a lot of stuff. But anyway, we can talk about all of that on the next exciting
Wait,
edition of.
before we end, like I have to give Liverpool where they'll finish next season. And like if it's anywhere below first, like we are having a problem.
Whoa.
Oh, so basically,
What?
I just there was this thing on the kickoff, right? And they were all like, so the Newcastle fan is the guy who sort of leads it, and he's like, I don't see anybody touching City next year. He asked the United fan, who do you think will touch City? He's like, United. He asked the Chelsea fan, who do you think it'll be? It'll be Chelsea. And then he's like, the Liverpool fan, please don't say Liverpool. He's like, it's obviously Liverpool,
It's
So it'll be really interesting to see who is the team that can put that challenge forward to City next year. But anyway, we have one more game from City and Chelsea this weekend, so we look forward to that and look forward to having everybody back for the next week. Peace.